Hello beautiful people and welcome back to my channel. So as yesterday was self-harm awareness day, I thought it would be appropriate to make today's video on self-harm. I do a lot of videos on self-harm anyway, but today I just wanted to do a general one. If you've clicked on this, you most likely are struggling with self-harm, so I wanted to give you some tips on how I stop self-harming. It's an addiction that's really hard to break for a number of reasons. I self-harmed for 7 years, and over that period of time my self-harm just got worse and worse and worse, and it was very hard to break that because once it becomes your go-to method, it's hard to come back from. But in time I did stop, and I just want to help as many people as possible stop as well, because it's just not worth it. It really isn't. So self-harm may start because you feel you deserve punishment, you want to show your emotional pain physically, you can't cope with your emotions, you just want to feel something in general, or you may be acting on impulse, but it can quickly turn into an addiction. And you may feel the need to do it anytime you come across certain situations or feelings, if you need relief. But as you may know, if you're watching this video, that relief isn't permanent, and you just have to keep doing it again and again and again, and making it worse and worse and worse. Afterwards come the feelings of guilt. You know, what have I done? People are gonna see it, etc, etc. Trust me, healthier coping techniques are so much better. Self-harm is not a long-term solution, but the thing is, you have to kind of want to recover from self-harm to some extent. Like, as long as the glimmer of hope is there in the distance. That sounded pretty stupid, but as long as you've got that kind of, yeah, like, this is getting ridiculous now, I want to recover, you can, even if it seems like it's a really small part of you that wants to. So I have 3 tips. I'm gonna make this video quite concise. If you have come to this video and you're wanting to use it as a distraction to not self-harm, then here we go. Okay, number 1, learning to cope with triggers. What my therapist always talked about was this red zone. So he would always give me like an illustration of you know, the thermometers, like the temperature things, and like right at the top is the little like bobble bit with the red. That's when it gets too hot. You're in the red zone when you self-harm. So you may be sat around here, something will trigger you, and then you will go into this spiral, usually of negative thoughts, overthinking it, feeling angry, feeling hurt, feeling upset, whatever it is, and then you end up in the red zone with no way out and no other option than self-harm. What we want to do is stop you getting up to the red zone, because when you're up there, you're very irrational, but when you're down here, you're a little bit more irrational. So we need to firstly learn to recognize our triggers. It's important to have in your head / write down what it is that triggers you, whether it's other people, whether it's certain scenarios, whatever it is, know that these things trigger you. So then when these scenarios arise, you can recognize them for what they are, which is a trigger. And this is a prime time to be mindful, and I understand this is difficult when you're in that situation. You don't want to be mindful, but what I mean by being mindful is literally just sitting with your emotions and not reacting to them, because the triggers in themselves are literally just events. It's how we react to them. The emotion comes up, but it's not the emotion that causes us to self-harm, it's our reaction. So if we just sit with the emotion, no matter how uncomfortable it is, and just let it be and not attach judgment to it. So I'll give an example. If someone says something hurtful to you, which is a trigger, instead of reacting straight away, instead of doing what your brain has done so often in the past and just overthinking, okay, they've said this to me, I'm a horrible person, I deserve this, thinking of all the other occasions when people were mean to you, your thinking just spirals. Instead of that chain reaction happening, be aware, feel the emotion, sit with it, Yes, it's uncomfortable, but is it hurting me? No, it's not hurting me. Give yourself some time to sit. If you can't just sit, this is a good opportunity to use the distraction technique. So I would just try and distract myself with whatever I could at the time, be that TV, magazines, arts and crafts, going for a walk. Tip number 2 is to have a plan for when the urge arises. These things are all about forward planning. So like I said, with the distraction techniques, you could have things in your room that you know are going to help you when the urge arises. So I did a whole video actually on self-harm alternatives, which I will link in the description below, but some which I mentioned in that and which I found helpful were squeezing an ice cube, writing words about how you feel where you would usually self-harm, using a red marker, punching a pillow, putting loud music on and dancing really crazily, having a bath and soothing yourself, getting some fresh air, talking to someone, telling yourself that you're going to put off the self-harm until you've tried at least one alternative technique, or just saying to yourself, I'm going to put off the self-harm for 5 minutes, saying I'm going to self-harm in 5 minutes, and then a lot of the time, by the time that 5 minutes is up, the urge has subsided. Remembering that you don't have to act on the urge is key, and also I think making it harder for you to act on the urge, like not having your shops in your immediate vicinity and just making things more difficult, not having like tissues for the cleanup afterwards, etc., whatever it is. And the final tip number 3 is to remember that relapses are going to happen. I don't know why we have this idea that we are going to decide to stop self-harming and then just never self-harm again. It's a case of being clean for a certain amount of days, relapsing, being clean for a certain amount of days, and these amount of days don't have to be like, okay, I'm going to be clean for 1 week, then 2 weeks, then 3 weeks. You may be clean for like 40 days and then relapse, and then be clean for 4 days and then relapse. Don't take these things into account too much. Just be gentle on yourself. It is a long road to recovery, and when you relapse it can be difficult. You may feel guilty, you may feel like, oh, I can't do this, you may feel like you're back to square one, etc., etc., but like I said, relapses are inevitable. All that matters is how you pick yourself back up from them and you keep going. There is literally no point, and it is not helpful to you in your recovery at all, to further judge yourself and further punish yourself in your own mind for relapsing. These things take a lot of time, but once you start getting out of the habit of it, it will make it easier. And I think definitely therapy and like putting all of these different techniques into place helped me as I got better, like mentally on a whole. My self-harm as a result of that definitely helped. I would start implementing all of these different healthier coping techniques in place of self-harm, and then eventually you just don't feel the need for it. And then nowadays, like, I still do get urges and they arise, but I just sit with them and I let them be, and I distract myself and I do all of these other things. If you're struggling, I really hope that these tips helped you. So let me know in the comments if they did. It would mean a lot to me if you gave this video a thumbs up, if it did help you in any way, and I will see you in my next video. But until then, goodbye.